Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic that's been making waves and sparking a lot of conversation.
Oh, yeah, you could say that again.
We're talking about, you guessed it, 90 Day Fiancé.
A show that never seems to run out of drama.
Right. But beyond the OMG moments and crazy couples, it actually raises some really interesting questions about love, culture, and relationships in a globalized world.
Yeah, it's more than just guilty pleasure TV, that's for sure.
So we thought it would be fun to go beyond just watching the show and dig into some research and articles that take a deeper look.
Like a deep dive behind the scenes into the cultural impact and all that.
Exactly. For those who might not be familiar, 90 Day Fiancé follows couples where one partner is from the U.S. and the other is from another country.
And they're in the U.S. on a K-1 visa, meaning they have just 90 days to get married.
Talk about pressure.
Right. It's a ticking clock, culture clashes, family drama, the whole shebang.
It's like a recipe for reality TV gold.
But it also makes you think about how these couples navigate those cultural differences, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like, remember Emily and Sasha? She moved to Russia to be with him and faced a lot of backlash for how she handled things, especially around gender roles.
Yeah, her story sparked a lot of debate about navigating expectations in cross-cultural relationships.
And you can't forget the online fan communities that dissect every little detail.
Oh my gosh, those are intense. People get so invested in these couples,
It's like a whole collective viewing experience.
with everyone weighing in on who's genuine, who's scamming, who's going to make it.
Speaking of passionate fans, I feel like we have to talk about the couples who brought the drama.
Oh, the drama. Where do we even begin?
Right. Angela and Michael immediately come to mind.
Their relationship was like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
But you couldn't look away.
It was that mix of shock and fascination, you know.
Totally. And her explosive behavior toward Michael raised a lot of questions about power dynamics and cultural sensitivity.
It's especially that scene where she vandalized his car. Like, whoa.
That was a wild one.
Definitely made you think about the limits of acceptable behavior, even in a reality TV context.
And then there was Colt and Larissa, whose relationship spiraled pretty quickly into accusations of abuse and arrests.
Their story was a tough one to watch because it highlighted the darker side of reality TV and the ethical implications of showcasing such a volatile relationship.
Yeah, it reminded us that not all love stories are fairy tales.
And sometimes the show inadvertently reviews the very real challenges and potential pitfalls of relationships formed under intense pressure.
And speaking of pressure, the K-1 visa process itself adds another layer of complexity.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you only have 90 days to decide if you want to marry this person.
Right, which can amplify existing tensions and create a sense of urgency that might not be the best foundation for a healthy relationship.
And don't forget that the American partner often becomes their fiancé's sponsor.
Meaning they're financially responsible for them.
Yep, and that can lead to disagreements about money, expectations about financial support, and concerns about potential exploitation.
Oh yeah, the financial aspect is huge.
Especially when you have couples from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
What one person sees as essential, the other might see as totally frivolous.
And those differences in perspective can blow up into major conflicts really quickly.
Especially with the added pressure of the 90-day deadline and being on a reality TV show.
It's like a pressure cooker of drama.
But it also provides some fascinating insights into the real-life challenges faced by couples navigating cultural and financial differences.
And we can't forget the language barriers. That's something almost everyone can relate to on some level.
Oh, definitely. Who hasn't struggled to order food or ask for directions in a foreign country?
Right, it's a universal experience.
And on the show, we see those communication challenges play out in both humorous and frustrating ways.
Like Ed and Rose's interactions.
Oh, those were classic. You couldn't help but cringe and laugh at the same time.
It was like watching a comedy of errors unfold.
But those seemingly lighthearted moments actually reveal deeper issues about how language barriers can lead to misunderstandings and limit a couple's ability to truly connect.
So it's not just about learning a few key phrases.
It's about understanding the nuances of communication, how cultural context influences language, and how misinterpretations can create tension and resentment.
It's like they're speaking different languages, even when they're using the same words.
Exactly.
But here's the crazy thing. Despite all the drama, cultural clashes, and communication hurdles, 90 Day Fiancé couples actually have a surprisingly high success rate.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you consider all the obstacles they face.
According to the research we dug up, the original show has a 54% success rate as of 2022.
Meaning over half of the couples featured are still together.
That's way higher than I would have guessed.
It's a testament to the fact that love can conquer a lot, even when things get messy.
And what's even more interesting is that the spin-off, 90 Day Fiancé, The Other Way, has an even higher success rate, 58%.
Which begs the question, what is it about the other way that seems to set couples up for success?
I know, right? You'd think moving to a whole new country would add more stress, not less.
It's counterintuitive, for sure.
So what's the secret sauce?
Well, that's a question we'll delve into in the next part of our deep dive.
We'll unpack the dynamics of The Other Way, explore some of the most memorable couples, and try to figure out why these relationships seem to defy the odds.
It's going to be juicy.
So stay tuned, folks. We're just getting started.
All right, so last time we were talking about how The Other Way actually has a higher success rate than the original show.
Yeah, it's kind of baffling, right?
It is. It
Yeah.
is. But when you think about it, those challenges can actually bring couples closer.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, for one thing, think about the American partner.
Mm-hmm.
They're uprooting their whole life, moving to a new country.
Yeah, no small feat.
Exactly. It shows a level of dedication and commitment you don't always see in the original show.
It's like saying, I love you enough to leave everything I know behind.
Right. And that often leads to a deeper cultural immersion for the American partner.
Makes sense. They're not just visiting, they're living it every day.
Yeah, they're experiencing their partner's culture firsthand, which can lead to a lot more understanding and empathy.
It's like a crash course in walking in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. And let's not forget, they're facing all these challenges together.
Oh, yeah, true. Navigating a new language, customs, building a life in a foreign country.
It's the ultimate test of teamwork.
So you're saying facing adversity together can actually strengthen a relationship more than just staying in your comfort zone.
I think so. It's about shared growth, mutual support, embracing the unknown as a team.
Okay, I can see that. Do you have any examples of couples that really illustrate this?
Oh, tons. But Jenny and Sumit's story immediately comes to mind.
Oh yeah, Jenny and Sumit. Didn't she move to India only to discover he was already married?
Yep. Talk about a plot twist.
That's a whole other level of cultural difference to navigate.
It really highlighted the complexities of arranged marriage and family expectations in India.
So did they manage to work things out?
They did, but it was a long and bumpy road. They faced family disapproval, cultural clashes, even legal hurdles to get Sumit's divorce.
Wow, so what kept them going through all of that?
I think their willingness to communicate, even when things got tough.
Communication is key.
They had those hard conversations about expectations, differences, their vision for the future.
And they were both willing to compromise.
Yeah, they had to learn to adapt to each other's needs and find a middle ground.
Their story really shows that love can conquer all, huh?
It does. But it also highlights the importance of understanding and respecting each other's cultures.
Right. Like Jenny had to learn about Indian traditions. Sumit had to stand up to his family's pressure. They both had to step outside their comfort zones.
Big time. So Jenny and Sumit are definitely a beacon of hope.
Right. They defied the odds.
But not every other way couple has such a happy ending.
Yeah, that's true. Any couples whose story kind of shows the other side of the coin.
Well, Paul and Corinne come to mind.
Oh boy. Paul and Corinne, their story was intense.
They had so many challenges right from the start. Language barriers, trust issues, concerns about Paul's mental health.
And then the added stress of living in a completely different environment.
Right. And remember that incident where Paul was mugged?
Oh, yeah. It was a stark reminder of the potential dangers, that's for sure.
Yeah, and sadly that was just the beginning for them. Their relationship kept spiraling with arguments, accusations, even legal battles.
It makes you wonder if some couples are just too toxic to make it work.
It's a valid point. Love isn't always enough.
And sometimes seeking help from a therapist or counselor can be beneficial.
Definitely. Whether the relationship lasts or not, therapy can help couples navigate those tough emotions.
It's not a sign of weakness to admit you need support, especially with the pressure of a cross-cultural relationship and the cameras in your face.
Totally agree. Okay, so we've talked about Jenny and Sumit, the success story.
And Paul and Corinne, a more cautionary tale.
Are there other couples you'd like to hear about?
Well, Ariella and Binyam's story seem pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, they moved to Ethiopia.
Yeah. Ariella was definitely apprehensive about the whole thing, but she wanted to make it work for their son.
It was a huge adjustment for her. The culture, the lifestyle, everything was so different.
Oh, how did she handle it?
Well, it wasn't always easy. They clashed over cultural differences, struggled with communication, even disagreed about parenting styles.
It sounds like a lot to juggle.
It was, but they were both committed to the relationship and to finding a way to make it work.
That's great to hear. It shows that even with big cultural gaps, couples can create a loving family life.
It does. And their story also touches on the challenges of intercultural parenting.
What were some of the specific issues they faced?
Well, Ariela's background was much more westernized,
Hmm.
while Binyam's parenting approach was shaped by Ethiopian traditions.
They had to find a way to blend their parenting styles.
Exactly. And it took a lot of open communication and compromise.
It sounds like it was a journey of growth for both of them.
Definitely. And their willingness to learn from each other is something we can all admire.
So we've got Jenny and Smit, Paul and Karine, and Ariella and Binyam. Any other couples we should chat about?
Oh, there are so many fascinating couples on this show. But Kenny and Armando stand out as a really beautiful example of love conquering societal barriers.
Oh, yeah. Kenny and Armando, they were one of the first same-sex couples featured, right?
That's right. And they face some serious hurdles, especially in Armando's home country of Mexico.
Yeah, I remember same-sex marriage wasn't even legal there when they started their journey.
Exactly. And Armando's family was pretty hesitant about the whole thing.
So how did they manage to navigate all of that?
Well, their love for each other was a huge driving force. They were a team through and through.
Having that kind of unwavering support must have been crucial.
Absolutely. And they were also really good at communicating their needs and fears.
Again, communication is so important.
It's the foundation of any strong relationship, especially when you're dealing with cultural differences and societal expectations.
And it sounds like they found a great support system outside of their families, too.
Yes. They built a chosen family of friends who celebrated their love and supported them every step of the way.
It's a reminder that family isn't always about blood, it's about the people who choose you.
Beautifully said. Kenny and Armando's story is a beacon of hope, showing that love can blossom even in the face of adversity.
It's truly inspiring. Okay, so we've talked about these amazing couples and their journeys.
But we can't forget about one of the most relatable aspects of the show: language barriers.
Oh, yeah. Those are always entertaining and sometimes a little painful to watch.
Right. You feel for them when they're struggling to understand each other, but it can also be hilarious.
Totally. Like, remember when Ed tried to tell Rose he loved her and it came out all wrong?
Yeah, that was classic Ed. It's those moments that make you realize how much we take communication for granted.
It's true. When you have to really work at it, you realize how nuanced language is.
Exactly. And those communication breakdowns can lead to all sorts of problems: misunderstandings, arguments, resentment.
So what can couples do to overcome those challenges?
Well, a lot of it comes down to patience, empathy, and a willingness to learn.
But sometimes those language barriers can actually bring couples closer, right?
That's right. When you have to slow down and really pay attention to your partner's words and body language, it can create a deeper level of intimacy.
Oh, I like that. It's like they're learning a new language together, and that shared experience strengthens their bond.
Exactly. And it can also lead to some pretty funny situations, as we've seen on the show.
It's the perfect blend of humor and heartwarming moments.
Right. But let's be real. Learning a new language is hard work,
It takes dedication.
and not every couple is willing to put in the effort.
So what happens when those language barriers become too much of a burden?
Well, that's where things can get tricky. If one partner is more fluent than the other, it can create an imbalance of power.
Yeah, I can see that happening. The fluent partner might end up making all the decisions.
Right. And the non-fluent partner might feel dependent or even isolated.
Imagine trying to build a life in a new country when you can't even communicate effectively.
It would be incredibly frustrating. And that can lead to all sorts of resentment and conflict.
So it's not just about learning the language, it's about being mindful of the power dynamics that can arise.
Exactly. Both partners need to be proactive. The fluent partner needs to be patient and supportive.
And the non-fluent partner needs to keep working on their language skills.
Right. And they both need to communicate their needs and expectations clearly.
So it's all about finding that balance, that sense of equality within the relationship.
Exactly. Okay, so we've talked about language barriers, but we can't forget about the impacts of family dynamics.
Oh, the family drama, that's a whole other layer of complexity.
It is. We've seen families who are super supportive of their child's international love.
And families who are totally against it.
Right. Some welcome their new in-law with open arms. Others are suspicious and distrustful.
It's like two worlds colliding.
And sometimes those collisions can be explosive, We've seen families try to sabotage relationships, spread rumors, even resort to emotional manipulation.
Wow. Yeah, that adds a whole other level of stress to an already challenging situation.
Right, because at the end of the day, everyone wants what's best for their child.
Mm-hmm. But sometimes those protective instincts can backfire.
They can, and it's important for couples to set boundaries with their families.
To communicate their needs and expectations clearly.
And sometimes you have to accept that not everyone will be on board, and that's okay.
It's about finding a family dynamic that works for you and your partner.
Exactly. Speaking of finding what works, we also have to talk about the financial realities of building a life together in a foreign country.
Oh, money matters. Always a hot topic.
Right. We've seen so many couples on the show clash over finances.
Arguments about wedding costs, who's supporting whom. It's a common theme.
And those arguments often reveal deeper issues about power, cultural expectations, and just basic compatibility.
Because it's not just about who has more money.
It's about how each person views money and what it represents within their culture.
Yeah, like in some cultures, it's seen as a sign of love to support your partner financially.
While in others, it's considered shameful to rely on someone else.
So those different perspectives can really create conflict.
Absolutely. And then you add in the visa requirements, where the American partner is often financially responsible for their fiancé.
It's a tricky situation for sure.
You want to be supportive, but you also don't want to feel taken advantage of.
So open communication is key, just like with everything else.
You have to be on the same page financially, emotionally, and logistically.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It is. But 90 Day Fiancé shows us the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to financial compatibility.
It's like a cautionary tale, but also a source of valuable lessons.
Exactly. And I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Okay, sounds good.
In the next part, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some broader takeaways from the show.
What can these couples teach us about love, relationships, and navigating cultural differences in a globalized world?
We'll explore those questions and more in the final part of our 90 Day Fiancé deep dive.
So stay tuned, folks. The conversation's just getting started.
All right, we're back for the final part of our 90 Day Fiancé deep dive. It's been a wild ride exploring all the ups and downs of these international relationships.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground. Cultural clashes, family drama, language barriers, the whole 9 yards.
But through it all, I think we've seen these couples grapple with some pretty universal themes.
Oh, absolutely. Love, commitment, communication, compromise. It's all there, just magnified by the whole cross-cultural element and the ticking clock of that 90-day visa.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? Because even though their situations are unique, the underlying themes of their struggles and triumphs are something we can all relate to.
Right. We've all had those moments where communication breaks down or expectations clash or we have to make tough choices about love and commitment.
It's like a crash course in relationships, just with a global twist and a whole lot of drama thrown in for good measure.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of communication, I think one of the biggest takeaways from the show is how crucial it is to be open and honest with your partner, especially when you come from different backgrounds.
Oh, for sure. We've seen countless examples of how miscommunication can lead to all sorts of problems.
From little misunderstandings to full-blown arguments.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even about the words themselves, but the cultural context and unspoken expectations that can lead to those misinterpretations.
It's like they're speaking different languages, even when they're using the same words.
And that's why it's so important to be patient, to listen actively, and to try to see things from your partner's perspective.
Right. It's about empathy, understanding, and a willingness to learn from each other. And 90 Day Fiancé shows us both the couples who do this well and the couples who struggle with it.
It's like a real-life experiment in cross-cultural communication, with all its successes and failures playing out on screen.
And speaking of learning and growing, I think another big theme is the importance of stepping outside your comfort zone and being open to new experiences.
Yeah, embracing the unknown.
Whether it's moving to a new country, trying new foods, or learning about a different culture, it's about expanding your horizons and challenging your assumptions.
And that can be scary, right? Leaving behind everything you know and jumping into the deep end of a completely different world.
It takes a lot of courage. But as we've seen with some of these couples, it can also be incredibly rewarding.
It can lead to personal growth, deeper connections, and a whole new way of seeing the world.
And even if the relationship doesn't work out in the end, you've still gained valuable experiences and insights.
That's a really good point. It's not always about the destination. Sometimes it's about the journey itself.
Exactly. And I think 90 Day Fiancé reminds us that love in all its messy and complicated forms, is a journey worth taking.
Even if it comes with a side of drama and a few cultural hurdles along the way.
It wouldn't be 90 Day Fiancé without them, right?
Oh,
But on a more serious note, I think the show also highlights the importance of self-awareness and knowing your own values.
oh yeah, being true to yourself.
Because when you're caught up in the whirlwind of a new relationship, especially one that crosses cultural boundaries, it's easy to lose sight of who you are and what you want.
And that can lead to making decisions that you might regret later on.
Exactly. So it's important to take the time to reflect on your own needs, your boundaries, and what you're truly looking for in a partner.
And to be honest with yourself about whether this relationship aligns with those values.
Right. Because ultimately, love shouldn't require you to sacrifice your core self or compromise your integrity.
It should enhance your life, not diminish it. And I think that's a powerful message that goes beyond the entertainment value of the show.
It's a message that everyone can benefit from hearing. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of 90 Day Fiancé, we want to leave you with this final thought. Love is a beautiful and complex journey, full of challenges and rewards.
And whether you're navigating cultural differences, language barriers, or just the everyday ups and downs of relationships, remember to communicate openly, stay true to yourself, and never stop learning and growing.
And keep watching 90 Day Fiancé, because you never know what kind of drama, insights, and heartwarming moments they'll throw your way next. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of pop culture and the human experience.